Hello, welcome back to the Fastball Sports Network. My name is Mark, and we have a lot of news and deals to go over from this past weekend. Today is Monday, March 14th. Of course, the MLB lockout was lifted on Thursday. We were expecting and speculating a big weekend in terms of trades, free agency signings, news in general, and we got it and then some. We're going to go over all of the moves and kind of notable things that happened right now, and I'll give my opinions, give my takes, and kind of think about some ramifications that could potentially happen from these moves occurring. The first big move coming out of the lockout was the Giants inking Carlos Rodon to a 2-year, $44 million deal. And now Carlos Rodon is a very interesting case. He has always had the ability, a former third overall pick, but he's never really been able to put it all together, whether it be through production or injury. And now he's coming off the best year of his career in a contract year. It's always a little skeptical, but he worked really hard. I read some stuff about how he changed his diet around. He was non-tendered by the White Sox the year prior, and he came back on a minor league deal, so he obviously had the motivation. He had a lot of drive. He's playing for a contract. He, of course, now turned into $44 million, which is great. I think the Giants are taking quite the gamble here, but it's a good gamble to take. A guy like him, coming off a year, like I said, a career year, we had a 2.37 ERA over the course of 130 innings. He did spend some time in the IL like he tends to do. But over the course of a full season, if you manage his workload properly, and you just kind of make sure he's there at the end. The Giants do kind of look poised to be a playoff team. I don't think they'll beat the Dodgers out again for the West, but they should definitely be in the wild card conversation, especially with the playoffs expanding with the new CBA. So I think bringing in a guy like Rodon is definitely a beneficial move for you. It is risky, of course, like I said, between his injuries and his inconsistencies. You don't really know exactly what type of play you're getting here, but it's a good gamble to take. If he's great, he'll opt out after year one. If he's not great, he'll stick around for year two. And then the Giants might be regretting that next year when they have to pay him $22 million. But of course, it's only a 2-year deal, so it's not really going to financially stricken them that much. It kind of like it is what it is. I like this deal for both sides, and it was a nice, fun way to kick off the next level of free agency here post lockout. All right, the next deal was a formality, in my opinion. It was Clayton Kershaw going back to the Dodgers for a 1-year, $17 million deal. There were some rumors he might go to Texas. That is where he's from. I know there was a little chatter about the Mets, but I don't think that was ever a real possibility. And I mean, to me, he was never leaving the Dodgers. He might next year if like this doesn't work out again because it was only a 1-year deal. But he's a legend there. He's one of their best pitchers of all time. They have a really storied franchise, of course, but he's one of their legends. And I just never saw him leaving. So it's a 1-year, $17 million deal. If he can prove he's healthy, another guy who has some injury concerns over the last handful of years, of course. But if he can put together like a 160, 180 inning campaign, which is no easy task, but I think his production will still be there. I think he'll be in the low threes. He's still a solid number 2 starter in my opinion. And yeah, I think he goes right back into free agency next year and probably gets like a 3-year deal and for some nice money if I'm right about Clayton. All right, this next move was a trade. It was the Twins sending catcher Mitch Garver over to the Texas Rangers for a middle infielder, third baseman, all around the diamond infielder Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Little asterisk there too, because of course he was flipped to the Yankees later on. We'll get to that in a little bit. But interesting trade to me. I actually like Mitch Garver a lot. I feel like he's a really, really solid power hitting catcher. He's not the best fielder, but he's fine. Like he's not like awful behind the dish. He's just kind of blah. Great power hitter. He had 31 home runs in just 90 games 2019. He spent the last 2 years a little hurt. The COVID year was kind of a mess for everyone. Then last year he fought through some injuries, but the production was still there from a game-to-game standpoint. I think Texas is getting a really, really solid bat here. I don't love what Texas is doing overall. I don't really know. I don't really see the vision that they see, but I can never knock a team for trying. I can never knock a team for bringing these players, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, and now Mitch Garver, an established catcher who looks like he can be a really nice piece for them. John Gray, too, from the pitching standpoint. So, like I said, I don't really see it right now, but I like that Texas is trying, and I'll never get on a team for that. I like this trade a lot more for Texas than I do for the Twins, but it's so hard to judge with the Twins right now because they already flipped this player and they still kind of are raising some eyebrows and scratching some heads on what's next. But Mitch Garver, like I said, I think he has the potential to be a top 5-ish catcher in the league, at least from an offensive standpoint. His defense might hold him back a little bit, but of course there's a DH in the American League. There's a DH in both leagues now, being the universal DH. So I think Mitch Garver, you pencil him in like the 5 or the 6 spot in your lineup. I think he plays maybe 140 games between catcher and DH in this next season. It could probably hit you 30, 35 home runs and be a really, really solid production player from your catcher DH standpoint. And I can't really judge Isaiah Kiner-Falefa just yet. We'll talk about him a little bit later on, but let's go to the next move now. All right, this next deal is a free agency deal. It is left-handed pitcher Yusei Kikuchi. He spent the first 3 years of his career with Seattle. He opted out of his deal. He signed a 3-year, $36 million deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. And this is a fine little move. I don't think it's a great move by any means. I think he's an okay pitcher. He's like a back end guy, maybe like a low end 3, high end 4. I don't think he's a 5. I think he's a little better than that. He had a really bad rookie year in Seattle, and he kind of been progressively getting a little better. He made the All Star team last year, but it wasn't really like a great, well deserved All Star team. He was really good in the first half, wasn't great in the second half. Of course, it only takes the first half numbers for the All Star game, so that's kind of why he made it. But he's just he's fine. He's going to be like a low 4s, mid 4s type of guy. He'll keep you in games. I don't love the fit. He's going to have to face the Red Sox and the Yankees plenty of times next year. I don't really see him thriving in that environment. But he also has really good stuff. I feel like his stuff plays up. Maybe his like FIP and his xFIP and those advanced numbers kind of look a little better than his ERA does. His K/9's around 9. Like he's a fine little pitcher, and I think it's an okay move. I don't love it, like I said, but he's an innings eater with that great Blue Jays lineup. He should keep them in games. He should win like 10, 12 games just because of how many runs that team will score. But I don't really like him in a big game. I don't really like him against the Yankees or the Red Sox in any type of pennant race type of format. But it is what it is. It's a fine little move. This next move is another trade. It is the New York Mets acquiring Chris Bassitt from the Oakland Athletics for prospects JT Ginn and Adam Oller. I think this is a fine move for the Mets. The Mets were looking for a starting pitcher here. They've been trying for a little bit. They were linked to the likes of Kikuchi, Carlos Rodon. Those guys just weren't really doing it for me. And I am a Met fan. For my concept, I was thinking these guys are fine guys, but there's so much uncertainty with the Mets rotation as it stands. It could be the best rotation in the league easily with the likes of Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom at the top. But of course, with Jake's elbow and Max's age, he's 37 years old, and also coming off an injury at the end of last season. There's so much uncertainty there. You don't really know what Carlos Carrasco is right now. You don't really know what Ty Walker is right now. So you bring in a guy like Chris Bassitt. He's just so stable. He's been the ace of that Oakland Athletics rotation for the last 2-3 years. Really, really good. Really, really underrated. He posts about a 3-ish, a little bit higher, like low 3s, mid 3s ERA every year. No one really talks about him because he's in Oakland and no one really cares about the Oakland Athletics, it's sad, but it's the reality of the situation. And you bring in a guy like Chris Bassitt now to plug into that 3-starter spot in the New York Mets rotation and just kind of, what you're getting every fifth day. And there's something to that. There's the stability there that's going to be really, really great for them. Of course, like I said, you don't really know there's a lot of question marks around that Mets staff. You bring in Chris Bassitt. He's a workhorse. He takes the ball every fifth day. He's going to his contract year, so he's motivated in that standpoint. Also, he's going to New York. He wants to prove that he's the real deal. Like I said, he's been doing this in Oakland. He's not getting that much mainstream attention. Now he's going to get a lot of attention here. He's going to be on papers. He's going to get a lot of eyes, and if he can show that he is that guy, he's looking at a massive payday and also the recognition that he probably deserves. So really nice move for the Mets here. I wonder if they're going to look into maybe giving him like a 2-year, 3-year deal off of this, or if they're just going to kind of sit on it for now. There's really probably no urgency to lock him up at this point, but I like this move a lot for the Mets. I think it really helps stable and solidify that starting rotation. The next move we're going to talk about is another trade from this past weekend. It's going to be the Cincinnati Reds trading away Sonny Gray to the Minnesota Twins in exchange for their first pick from last year, being Chase Petty. This is kind of a little bit of a head scratcher to me. I don't want to talk about the Twins at this point because it is so clear that they're up to something in the sense that I feel like moves are piling up and they're going to eventually do something really big to kind of make sense of all of this. I don't think the Twins are a playoff team. I don't think the Twins are close to a playoff team. And for them to go out and trade their first pick from last season in the draft for Sonny Gray, who is a fine starter. I like Sonny Gray. He's going to give you probably like a mid 3.4 to 3.6 ERA, a good K/9, a lot of ground balls, which is really good to have a guy like that in your rotation. But he's probably a 3 starter, maybe a 2 if you're pushing it. And I just don't really know for a team that's in their position. The starting pitching around Sonny Gray right now for the Minnesota Twins staff, you're looking at Griffin Jax, Randy Dobnak, Dylan Bundy. I don't see how you can look at that. And Joe Ryan, of course, which they got from Nelson Cruz, who looks like he could be pretty good, but I just don't see how you can kind of like build that rotation around and be like, oh yeah, we're a Sonny Gray away from doing this thing, which I don't believe they feel that way. I'm sure they're talking to other teams. I'm sure maybe they'll get like a Montes, maybe they'll do something else with Oakland. But right now, I'm just looking at it. I don't see what the Twins are doing exactly. Nice return for the Reds. The Reds are clearly not trying to win this season. I think that's been pretty apparent. They're letting Castellanos walk. Let Trevor Bauer walk the year prior. They're just not really anything too special. They still have Luis Castillo. They still have Tyler Mahle. I wouldn't be surprised if one or both of those guys are traded before opening day at this rate. And yeah, they got a first round pick from last year. So good for them. Good little return. Like I said, I can't really fully judge the Twins at this time. Right now, it's kind of just a question mark. I don't love what they're doing, but question mark. And then I'll give it a solid like B plus here on the red side for getting a first round pick for Sonny Gray. This next move was an absolute head scratch for me. It was late Sunday night. The Washington Nationals signed Nelson Cruz to a 1-year, $15 million deal with a mutual option for a second year. Now listen, Nelson Cruz is a great player. He's 41 years old. He's a DH, and he's a masher. Obviously, with the NL adopting the DH now, he can go ahead and DH there every day. The Nationals are not a good baseball team, and I don't think that's even disputable at this point. I know there was a lot of good teams that were seeking Nelson Cruz's services, the likes of the Padres, the Dodgers, the Braves. I said the Brewers linked to him. These are a lot of teams that are pretty much a shoo-in for playoff teams. And for Nelson Cruz to kind of not go there and to sign with the Washington Nationals, who I believe are going to win about 70 games this next season. They don't really have any pitching, and with the exception of Juan Soto and now Nelson Cruz, their lineup is pretty weak as well. I don't think they have much of a bullpen to speak of either. So I think you're looking at like a 70-win team here. And I'm just not sure why a 41-year-old who's, whether he wants to admit it or not, is probably toward the end of his career. One of these years he is going to fall off on a production standpoint. It's going to happen. The Father Time is undefeated. We know this. I don't know why you go to the Washington Nationals here. It didn't really make sense to me. I feel like it was a missed opportunity for him. But hey, maybe he loves Juan Soto and he wants to be a part of what his development as a player. I'm not really sure. I can't really put any logic to it at this time. It kind of just, it is what it is move. I don't love it. I expect them to trade him at the deadline. He'll be traded like he was last season from the Twins when the Nationals are 12 games out of first place when the July deadline comes around. All right, we have another big trade here that occurred Sunday night. Now we can kind of fully talk about Isiah Kiner-Falefa as he was then flipped from the Twins with Josh Donaldson and his $50 million contract to the New York Yankees for Gary Sanchez and Gio Urshela. There's a lot to unpack here. It's another move where it's like you can't fully grasp the whole trade until you see what happens from this. I think it's clear that both teams are up to a lot right now. They're probably talking to a lot of free agents, probably in talks of a lot of different trades, and they're kind of just trying to see what works. I do like this trade a lot from the New York Yankees standpoint. I think it was very clear they needed a change of pace. The team they had in place was not working. They tried it for several years. It's not working. You kind of got to have some type of overhaul. Obviously, the likes of Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge are elite players in this league. They are great. You needed a better cast around them. You needed something different to work. And you look at a guy like Gary Sanchez, I feel like the writing has been on the wall with him for the better part of maybe 3 years where when are they going to stop this? He's not a good catcher. He's not hitting well. At what point are we going to say, all right, enough's enough. We gotta improve. We gotta upgrade. And it finally came here as they traded him to the Minnesota Twins with Gio Urshela, who Gio Urshela is a fine little player. I don't think he's anything like spectacular. I feel like he'll probably hit maybe 270 with like 15, 20 home runs for the Twins. He plays a pretty good third base. I know he was a Gold Glove finalist back in 2020, I believe. So he's a nice player, but I don't think it's like a massive loss by any means. And you look at the return here, you get Josh Donaldson, who is still a very, very good player. Baseball Savant still loves him. He hits the ball really hard. His advanced metrics are still very good. He is 36 years old, and he does have a lot of different injuries with his lower legs, so concerns there, but I feel like he's still a really, really solid get. He had an 825 OPS last year with 28 home runs, so he's still very, very proficient with the bat. I feel like you pencil him into your 5 or 6 spot. You got to manage his workload a little bit between the DH and third base and probably give him some days off in general, like complete days off. Hopefully, you're probably looking at one IL stint at least. That's kind of just how Josh Donaldson's been going the last handful of years. But I feel like you can get maybe 30 home runs out of him, drive in 80 runs in like the 5 or the 6 spot, and he gives you good at-bats. He walks, he doesn't chase too much, doesn't strike out too much. He's just a professional hitter, and he's pretty solid at that. Then you look at Isiah Kiner-Falefa here. The Yankees have been reportedly looking at a lot of like defensive first shortstops over the last handful of years. Andrelton Simmons being the one linked to them the most, I feel like. But they got their guy here, and he's nothing special in my opinion. I feel like Isiah Kiner-Falefa, you're looking at a 260 hitter, little power, little speed, good glove, and he's kind of just a singles guy. So it's not really great. I think he's like a decent stopgap. They have a few big shortstop prospects on the way up. And he plays all the infield positions, so they can accordingly like move him to third, move him to second. He's just not really anything too spectacular in my opinion. He's kind of like a low move for the Yankees in my opinion. I think he's not a guy that they normally target. Like he's not very splashy. He's not very like flashy. He's not like a big name to go out and get. They got Isiah Kiner-Falefa and his 260 average with his 9 home runs and 15 steals. He's just he's fine. He's like a fine player. like I said, it's hard to judge this move at this time with what we're expecting for both teams to do. There's a lot of dominoes still to fall on both the Twins and the Yankees front and baseball's front as a whole. But it's fine. Also, I don't love Gary Sanchez, but the report is that the Twins are planning on using him as a primary DH with like a little backup catcher in there. I think that's definitely worth the gamble. He's a guy that we've seen struggle so much defensively, and it's definitely in his head. It's definitely been something he's been conscious of. And now you take him and you take a hitter. He's probably like 28 years old at this point. He's not as young as he used to be, of course. But you take a guy, you let him DH every day, and I feel like you're looking at a low batting average. I don't see him going back to those like 280, 285 days back in probably 2017, but I feel like you can get like a 240 average, maybe 40 home runs out of him. 40 home runs might be an aggressive projection, but he's definitely flashed that power in the past. I think he's worth the gamble is what I'm trying to get at. He's still going to strike out a lot. I don't love him from a batting average standpoint, but a team like the Twins, I don't know what direction they're going in, but I think this is a relatively decent gamble to let Gary Sanchez be your DH for this year and kind of see if it works. If it doesn't work out, you move on. And if it doesn't work out in this capacity, Gary Sanchez is probably out of baseball, but it's a good gamble. It's an interesting trade, and that's kind of all I have to say about it. And then this trade just broke probably 2 minutes into my recording. The Oakland Athletics traded Matt Olson to the Atlanta Braves. This is a massive deal. They got Shea Landgreens and they got Christian Pache, the number 1, number 2 prospects from the Braves, along with a few other prospects. This is seen as a big haul in the industry going back to Oakland, which is really good for them. Of course, they're in a full rebuild now, trading the likes of Matt Olson and Chris Bassett. We're expecting Sean Manaea. We're expecting Frankie Montas, Matt Chapman. They're going to clear house at this point. There's no reason to go half in, half out. We know how Oakland operates. They're going to be moving all of these players. And for me, the bigger thing here is Freddie Freeman, but we'll talk about Matt Olson first. Really great player. I don't want to try to downplay Matt Olson's greatness, but Atlanta Braves just closed the book on Freddie Freeman, essentially, and he is their franchise player. They just won the World Series. They are paying Ronald Acuna and Ozzie Albies not a lot of money for a very long time, and it's insane to me. I really hope the news comes out, whether it's on Freddie's end or on baseball's end. What happened here? How do we not get an agreement done between the Braves and Freddie Freeman? But we'll talk about that later. Right now, it is a really good move for Oakland, I think. They were trading Matt Olson regardless. It seems like they got a really nice haul back in prospects. I don't know if Christian Pache can really hit. I've seen him some. He's a really, really great fielder. I don't know if the bat's going to develop, especially in a place like Oakland, but that's fine. And they got the catcher in Shea Landgreens, which I'm probably saying his name wrong. I haven't really heard a ton about him, but I do know he's a pretty well-regarded catching prospect. Of course, it's really hard to develop catchers, so if they think they got a good one here, then I'm sure they're feeling really good about themselves right now. I think Matt Olson, you're going to pencil him into the 3 spot in the lineup with Freddie leaving, the 3, 2, or 4, one of those spots. And he's going to go out and hit. He's going to hit his 250, 260, probably hit 40 home runs, driving a lot of runs with Gold Glove caliber defense at first base. Matt Olson's a really, really good player, but he's not Freddie Freeman. You can't squint. You can't do anything to make this okay, in my opinion. I don't like it. I can't see how you win the World Series and then you let your best player walk, who's been your franchise player for the better part of a decade. I don't see the sense of it. I don't like it. I don't see the logic in it. Unless Freddie just didn't want to go back, but I don't think that was the case either. I think the Braves either shortchanged him or there was some type of dispute, some type of issue there. I can't make sense of it. And then the next domino to fall here is Freddie Freeman, who is kind of linked to the likes of the Dodgers, who are probably the favorite now, him being from LA. And they have some issues there between like Max Muncy, Cody Bellinger, some different things going on, injury inconsistencies. I mean, they would be ridiculous if they got Freddie Freeman. Also, you can't really rule out the New York Yankees at this point. There's been some reports linking them to Anthony Rizzo, a reunion there, which I think makes a lot of sense for both sides. But Freddie Freeman is a elite all-star player, so he would obviously be an upgrade from Anthony Rizzo or Luke Voigt, whoever they're running out there. But he's a lot of money. I don't know if the Yankees want to really go that high into the luxury tax at this time after taking on all of Josh Donaldson's $50 million. So it's very interesting. I do expect the likes of Carlos Correa and Freddie Freeman to be signing within the next coming days. They kind of have to. We still have guys like Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos, Melo Conforto on the board. There's a lot of moving parts that still have to be moved, but this was a crazy weekend in baseball. It's so hard to judge these moves. I said it already in this video. I'm going to say it again. There's still so many moving parts and so many dominoes that have to fall before we can properly judge these moves. I just cannot wrap my head around Freddie Freeman not being Atlanta Brave. I'm a New York Mets fan. I'm thrilled today. Like I said, Matt Olson's a great player. I can't talk down to Matt Olson at all. I really like him as a player. But the Braves got worse today. it's mind blowing that we got to this point. There was always the rumors. I never believed them. I always thought in my head, there's no shot they actually, when the push comes to shove, they are not going to let Freddie Freeman lead the Atlanta Braves. And it's not official yet. Of course, maybe he comes back and Matt Olson DHs or vice versa. But today, trading a big haul of your prospects to get a first baseman, to me, signifies the end of Freddie Freeman in Atlanta. It's nuts. It was a crazy weekend in baseball. I expect more craziness coming, like I said, with the likes of Carlos Correa, Freddie Freeman. We got Melo Conforto, Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber. A lot of big bats still need to sign, and I expect that to come in the coming days. I'll come with more videos, more updates, and kind of just talk about where I'm coming from. We'll see more moves being done. Baseball's back, and it's a crazy time. So thanks for watching, everybody. I'll come back, like I said, the next coming days when Carlos Correa and Freddie Freeman ultimately make the decision. And that's it for me. Thanks for watching, everybody.